So let's kick it off by introducing Scott Hanselman, talking to our customers today. Scott, thanks for being such a great friend for Cosmos DB, and welcome to the show.
Absolutely my pleasure. Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to talk to some cool customers who've been using Cosmos DB. For folks who've watched me on Azure Friday at azurefriday.com, you know that we have our friends from Cosmos on all the time, and the opportunity to come to Cosmos DB Conf and talk to real engineers working on real stuff and real customers was one I just couldn't pass up. So thanks for having me. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to bring on Natasha Diaz-Over from Walgreens. She's a technical architect at Walgreens. Natasha, welcome to Cosmos DB Conf. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, Scott. I'm pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for hanging out. Like I was saying before, I really love having folks that are working on real things come and chat with us today, and that's why we're having you here today. So what did you all build with Azure Cosmos DB?
So at Walgreens, we're actually currently in the process of building a new pharmacy system for our stores, and we're calling it RX Renewal. So our current system is about 30 years old, and yes, it was ahead for its time, but it's now due for an upgrade. With RX Renewal, what we've done is we've gone down the path of building microservices. So it's a domain-based development where domains are grouped together by products. In our legacy system, upgrades were really delivered as a single package, which contained all the components. So let's say we needed to make a clinical change, to the program. We were still deploying the billing components as well, simply because it was packaged together. This, of course, was a lot of downtime. And what we've done with Cosmos DB now is gone a more focused level with microservices. So if billing needs a fix, then the patch really touches only the billing functions and the billing database, no more impacting other processes. So that's really how we're using Cosmos DB.
Okay, so it sounds like the shift to microservices probably provided a lot of business value. Well, what is the specific business value that you provided to the company?
So our pharmacists are really now working with an interface that is more modern. It's internet-based, so it's more natural to them. In our legacy model, what we had was separate store servers and a central server. So the information needed to be sent from our stores back up to the central system. So stores operated only in a store-only or a central-only fashion. With Cosmos DB, everything is now cloud-based, so it's all centrally located, and we don't really have to transmit data back and forth. Because it's cloud, it also means higher availability, and so less downtime for maintenance. And that translates to a much better customer experience.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're new to Cosmos DB. What was your experience? What are some things maybe that you learned during this development process?
So I've worked with databases for a really long time, but it was primarily with on-prem and cloud. And Cosmos DB was my first exposure to a PaaS system. It was a completely new experience to no longer have to keep track of what software versions we were at, what was supported, when we needed to upgrade, what changed between versions. This whole building and maintaining of database software was gone. And of course, the licensing costs went along with it. I want to say another big change for me was also the business continuity planning. Yes, I still need to plan for it, but I'm no longer writing backup scripts, maintaining them or having to work with backup teams to check on them to see how fast my backups are completing. Are they completing on time? Can I restore them? This has all now been passed on to Microsoft, and the team is really more focused now on application design. I want to say I also really like the high availability setup. My data is now really replicated 4 ways with availability zones just through the click of a button. And DR testing is so much easier. Before, we had to have multiple teams coming together, in a room, planning, testing. Sometimes it took days. Today, for the database portion of it, we're testing in minutes as opposed to days. So while, yes, originally there was like a really steep learning curve, on the whole, I think I really had a good experience, moving from IaaS to PaaS. So,
was there anything particular that was really surprising? They were just like, wow, that was a surprise.
Cost and how much detail is being provided. So before, for our projects, what we used was a bucket system. So we would just dump all the costs into a singular bucket and break them up, divvy them up, and distribute them to the projects. So basically, projects were getting what was considered a percentage of that bucket. Now we're seeing costs broken down by hardware, network, database. And so we can provide our business really with an exact bill. When we're talking of cost, I guess we can even say that with Cosmos DB, we're able to spin up environments so much faster, like in hours instead of days or weeks, because those resources are easily available to us. We can tell the business that, if you shut these services down because they're not in use at the moment, this is your cost savings. Or if you want to grow, this is how much you can expect to grow. For me, I think more importantly, I can actually show the impact of database design on the cost. If your workload is really unknown, you can use autoscale. You observe, then you make the change. If I make a mistake and I provision something incorrectly, I can fix it. And the cost impact is seen immediately. I'm not stuck with that cost because I made a mistake. Bad queries, if developers write bad queries, it's now actually defined in terms of dollars. So I can send them back for tuning. So these really fine-grained cost details were an unexpected bonus for us.
As we get towards the end of our little chat right here, I'm curious if there's anything that you'd like to see improve, right? It's not just gushing about all the wonderful things about Cosmos. There must be some things that you'd like changed.
Yes, I come from a DBA background. So for me, I'd like to see a selection of tools and utilities that allows me to analyze the environments better. Yes, I know Cosmos DB was really built for developers, but the business really always wants good, fast, inexpensive design. So if there were tools that allowed me, quick analysis, that would really be helpful, like a script that goes through the accounts and picks indexes that have the default settings still, or collections with RUs that are too high, so I can revisit them and see if anything needs to change. Yes, I know advisor recommendations is a feature that is out now. As we see ourselves rolling out to more and more stores, I'm really looking forward to see what that provides.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Natasha Diaz-Over, technical architect at Walgreens, for sharing all the great stuff that you're building on Azure Cosmos DB. Very interesting stuff. I like to see what practitioners are doing with the product. Now, my second guest is Brandy Umdenstock, Senior Software Engineering Manager at Sam's Club. Hi, Brandy.
Hey, Scott.
So what did you build at Sam's Club with Azure Cosmos DB?
Yeah, so we actually built two systems on Azure Cosmos within Sam's Club, or within my team anyway. So the first one that we built was our core membership platform. And that's the transactional backend system where all operations interacting with membership data take place. Those interactions happen across multiple channels. So in club, across 600 clubs in our chain, through our e-commerce platform and on our mobile app. Some examples of those transactions, and this is by no means an all-inclusive list, but just some common examples of things that people do with this platform are membership joins. So the new membership creations, membership upgrades, renewals, membership validations at checkout, and account maintenance activities like email or shipping address updates.
Wow, that sounds like a pretty significant thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a core platform for running the Sam's Club business.
Wow. So that provides a lot of business value. Like you did it one way before, and now bringing Cosmos into the mix made things better for everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. So the membership platform, as well as the credit platform that I didn't quite get a chance to explain, they were the two things that we built on top of Cosmos, and they were existing systems before. They were running in a legacy environment because they had been built many years ago. And so we actually migrated these systems from the legacy platform to Azure and Cosmos. So in doing so, we were able to realize a handful of benefits. Some of those are just the ability to scale to meet our business needs. We were able to consolidate our data into a single golden source for both membership and credit. We were able to reduce cost, complexity, and time in delivering business initiatives. And also, this move provided business continuity and disaster recovery capabilities for us that were not necessarily there before.
Wow, that really speaks to the platform as a service idea. Like you just got stuff, for free because of the underlying platform. So it sounds like you learned a lot during this development process.
Oh, absolutely. So we were actually one of the first teams in our organization to begin experimenting with Cosmos. So we really didn't have a lot of context or a baseline to really even know what to expect, especially in terms of performance. So one of the things that we really learned was that Cosmos provided better performance than we had originally anticipated. For example, when we were working on our integrations at point of sale, we had a goal that the new system needed to perform as fast or faster than the existing system. And when we were done with it and all of our performance tuning, we actually cut the overall transaction times at point of sale in half from where we were with our legacy system, which was actually very fast itself. So that was something that was really cool that we learned. We also learned just around just some things in general from moving from a relational database to Cosmos. We learned quite a bit about database structure design, query optimization. We had a lot of tests and learning in that process, but we were able to design database models based on our business use cases and ensuring the right partition keys were defined so that we could spread out the data evenly across the partitions and optimize the designs of our queries.
Was there one thing that stood out that was the most surprising thing during this process?
Ooh, I'd say, one thing that was very surprising to us was the point read query performance. So we're a very heavy read system. And in the point reads, we see single digit millisecond performance about 99% of the time. Our business use cases that utilize those point reads had about a 50 to 70% performance improvement versus our legacy system utilizing that point read capability. So that was pretty surprising for us.
Yeah, I am when I have Kirill and from friends from the team on my show Azure Friday, I'm consistently surprised when things are single milliseconds. It's like that's not possible. But the idea that you're seeing that in 99% of your reads is really amazing. So do you have any feedback for the team that you want to share in a live forum at the end here?
Yeah, I think I would just call out that we have been very impressed with our system's ability to scale and handle high throughput. We've run our last 2 holidays at Sam's Club through Cosmos, also multiple PS5 and Xbox events, and even the COVID panic buying frenzy that happened a few years ago. All of that ran on Cosmos, and we had very dynamic throughput during all of those occasions, and the system handled it without any issue. So we've been very pleased with the product.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks so much for sharing some real stories about what you're doing over there at Sam's Club.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, that was Brandy Umdenstock, Senior Software Engineering Manager at Sam's Club. My next guest is Guillermo Rausch, CEO and founder of Vercel. Hey, how are you?
How's it going? Good to see you again, Scott.
Good to see you, sir. It's been a little while. Everybody online's talking about serverless, and I like to joke that there's still servers. You just think about them less, right? And what was so appealing about the first part of the cloud, and why did it get people excited? And how did we get into serverless?
Yeah, I think you teed it up really well. I think it's always been around hiding complexity and just leaving complexity behind. I think Cloud 1.0 is about leaving that data center behind. I think we could have called it data center less back then. We didn't, but people would have said, "Oh yeah, the data centers are still there. You're just not thinking about it. You're not maintaining them." And I think when it comes down to the specifics that relate to data distribution, I think the thing that stood out is it was just about making cloud possible. It was just about, putting some software in a box, in a virtual machine, software likely that already existed and was not exploiting the primitives of cloud just yet. And it was single region, and it was all about just making things possible and affordable for people to get online and worry less about that underlying infrastructure.
That is really you just gave me a moment, when you're listening to a podcast and you're parked in your driveway, but you need to get out of the car, but you want to keep listening because that was a moment. So the first part of the cloud was just proving that we could put computers in a box and think about them less. Okay, so once we proved that out, we're like, okay, we can put them in a box, we can cool them, we can do things, we can bill per second. right?
Yes.
So then how did that evolve to platform as a service and then just really functions in the cloud?
Yeah, I think what's interesting about serverless is that I think it's what really takes advantage of the cloud as a whole. You mentioned the pricing model being unique to the consumption of the service. It allows you to engineer differently in my mind, because now I'm thinking, well, according to how I structure my code and my data, I'm being billed only for what I use. So when it came down to storage, I think things like S3 and the innovations that started to come with cloud, which were hiding some of the operating system implementation details and were giving you altogether new interfaces. Whereas a developer, you're just reasoning more about the application layer of things. And I think really that's what serverless truly is about, which is about thinking more about your application, less about the underlying infrastructure, and then kind of getting those developer experience benefits, especially what we do at Vercel around, well, you just put your application in the right framework, in the right shape, and then it just seamlessly scales according to traffic and usage.
Now, I've seen people say that they shouldn't have to think about the cloud, but when we also hear the word cloud native, which means that we're thinking deeply about the cloud, where we initially naively lifted and shifted, we picked up stuff and we put it in the box in the data center, but applications are better when they know what's underneath them. How do you see modern applications that are being built with Next.js? Like, do they know that the cloud is there, or do they just ask for functions and everything's magic? How much awareness of the cloud is in the app layer?
I think there has to be, to a certain extent, right? Because you want to take advantage of as much cloud as you can. And I think the final transition from cloud 1.0 to serverless is to edge computing. And now we're starting to involve location, especially with data platforms like Cosmos, which are truly global. We're going from region to applications that are globally distributed and are fast everywhere in the world. So one of the things that Next.js helps customers do is put the application in the right shape and use the right primitives for each part of the life cycle of the application. So for example, when a request comes in, I can first handle it at the edge. I can do some of the rendering there to personalize the experience. But then there's other parts that I have to run right next to where my data lives, and I can use serverless functions for that. So Next.js is all about enabling this cloud native developer model, hiding all the parts that are truly boring and unnecessary, but rising those elements that are going to make your application distinctly unique. And in this case, global.
Yeah, I like that, because that is the whole point of computers, right? Is to hide the boring stuff. If you can do something twice, then you automate it. And if it's boring, let the computer do it. That seems like a reasonable thing
Brilliant.
to focus on. Now, you mentioned that it's about the edge and getting closer and closer to the end user. Cosmos already, in some cases, has, as we've seen, single-digit millisecond responses. Vercel really prides itself on being warm, hot, fast. You are, as long as I've known you, you've been obsessed with making things happen. If it's already single millisecond and you bring it to the edge, you're talking about instantaneous applications, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, one of the examples of combining Cosmos and Next.js is Walmart, where they were making transactions from the UI, wherever the user is, in the multi-master Cosmos setup. So it's not even just reads, it's also writes and right next to the user. I think that is the full premise of edge computing, is that no matter where the visitor is, you're delivering the application to them. But unlike old style CDNs, we're not just giving them the static assets, the videos, the photos. We're giving them the full dynamic application experience right where they are. That could involve giving them content that suits their location, giving them the right discounts, the right prices, the right searches, the right suggestions. But then when they're transacting, I think this is a feature that's quite unique to Cosmos as a data platform, is that you're also giving them really snappy response times. One of the things that we pride ourselves in with Next.js is that React allows us to put compute everywhere. We do it at build time with static generation. We do it in the core regions where your data is with server-side rendering. We allow you to personalize at the edge with edge rendering. But then what's really cool about a React app is the interactivity on the device itself. So the key thing there is that I want to tap, I want to see my card animate, and then I want that card to be safely stored in my database. And this is where these global data platforms, in concert with platforms for the front end like Vercel and Next.js, kind of like give you that global maxima. It's just fast all across the board.
I don't know if you may be old enough to remember the commercial where the guy with a jar of peanut butter bumps into the lady with the chocolate, and then they throw it up in the air, and then suddenly they go, "You got your peanut butter and my chocolate." It seems like the mix of Next.js
I love
and a global data platform like Cosmos DB is a great peanut butter and chocolate type of situation.
That. Absolutely.
All right. Absolutely brilliant. So lovely to see you. And folks can see you, of course, online and check you out at Vercel and learn more about Next.js and how it works great with Cosmos DB. Good to see you.
Thank you, Scott. See you.
All right. Those are some really great stories from customers using Cosmos DB in the real world in their businesses. But next, we're going to bring out architect Kirill Gavrylyuk to talk about what's in the future for Cosmos DB. Kirill.
Hi, Scott. Great to be
How's
here.
it going?
Good,
you know, so Guillermo, always thinking about these things from an architectural perspective, trying to get things, sub millisecond, fast. He talked about the future of serverless. What is the future of serverless for databases? Is this a solved problem? Is there anywhere for the Cosmos to go?
Oh, I think we're only getting started. I mean, really, when customers looking for serverless from the database, they're looking for three things. No servers, or not think about servers. As they really don't want the database as a service. They want data API as a service. And I think we're getting there. Second is they really want to pay for what they use, as Guillermo pointed out, and they really mean it. It has to pay for what you use, only those transactions, and pay nothing when there are no transactions, and at any transaction rate. And that's where I think with platforms like Cosmos DB, we can give you that at both scales. When you just have few requests and we charge you per request at some like 25 cents per million requests, or when you have lots of requests, millions of transactions per second, and we only charge you when you actually do them. And quickly, we don't really need to scale anything. We just you just pay for what you use. And most
it definitely seems like from what Guillermo was saying that is the expectation. I mean, the folks at Sam's Club love it. The folks at Walgreens love it. We want instant reads. We want instant writes. We want them as close to the user as possible. We only want to pay for what we use, which is super, super important. When you come on Azure Friday, when you come on regularly, you are always showing us something new. It seems like there's new things happening in Cosmos every quarter. What is the team focused on in the short term and then in the next, 6 to 9 months?
Absolutely. In the short term, a lot of our focus is on our strengths. I really believe that as you invest in your strengths, you can get only better. And so elasticity and serverless, because that is the future. And so we're announcing it's built quite a few exciting things around kind of expanding our serverless footprint, as well as offering folks platform where you pay even less, and it's a lot more efficient and a lot more tuned to exactly what you use. So you don't have to worry anymore about hot partition keys and nonsense like this. A lot of investment is in availability, and kind of looking and the developer experience. Right? I was always about it's my pet peeve, but it's very important. The platform used to be super simple to use, and kind of Cosmos DB solves really complex problems, and you don't want that complexity to transpire. Going forward, though, I think we're seeing three trends. It's a very exciting time for databases. You're seeing NoSQL and relational coming from opponents to friends and more. We're seeing non-relational platforms adding more richness to query, better ACID guarantees, etc. We're seeing relational platforms adding horizontal scale. And Cosmos DB is very uniquely placed, where at the foundation, it is not religious. There's nothing particularly NoSQL about it. So we're definitely tuned into that trend, and you should see some exciting stuff coming out of Cosmos DB on that front. Serverless is definitely we'll continue pushing on that, and then really kind of providing developers intuitive APIs is very critical to us. We want to have fewer APIs. We want to focus on the APIs, but things like React applications love GraphQL. Mm-hmm. Believes that all databases should have GraphQL endpoints. And things like that.
So There's a very famous, I think it's Arthur C. Clarke, who's a science fiction writer, who said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. If you have something super advanced like Cosmos, you're like, I don't know, it's magic. Now, each additional layer of abstraction in computer science is indistinguishable from magic. Now, when I work with Cosmos, I tend to use the Mongo or the Graph, I use the Gremlin, I use different APIs. Cosmos is one of the few examples of a successful multi-API offering. It seems indistinguishable from magic, but sometimes it can make things more complex. What is your view kind of on multi-APIs, and are you going to add more? Because it's magical to think Mongo and store in Cosmos.
It's been certainly one of the bets that was surprisingly successful. We were a bit skeptical at the beginning because the promise of multi-API is that you provide consistent experience. I can set up backup policies across all my databases, whether they're Mongo or Cassandra, because it's the same platform. I don't need to think about how to set up high availability and things like this. But you're right, it brings complexity. I think we certainly have 3 very successful APIs on the platform: our core SQL API, Mongo API, that is very popular, Cassandra API that brings us petabytes of data into the platform. I think we're gonna be very intentional adding more, because that adds complexity. We're gonna focus, and focus is a virtue, on making those APIs even better and better. We may add, as like in response to the trends that I just mentioned earlier, around kind of the relational and non-relational coming together. There's some exciting stuff will come out, but we'll be very diligent and focused on like how many APIs we want to add.
Very cool. Well, it's always fun to have you on and chatting with me. If you can check out more Kirill at azurefriday.com. There's tons of great content, documentation, and videos with our friends from the Cosmos DB team. This has been wonderful, Kirill. Thanks for letting me join you all here on Cosmos DB Conf. We talk with Walgreens, we talk with Sam's Club, we talk with Guillermo from Vercel. Fantastic. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we'll bring back Steph and Deb to share the rest of the day. All right. That was pretty cool. Hey, friends. I got to meet great people doing great stuff at Walgreens and Sam's Club, and talk to Guillermo from Vercel working on Next.js. I know that you have a bunch of cool things that are coming up in the next segment, right?
Yeah, so many great presentations that we have and demos. I'm so excited to see the rest of the day. And thank you for asking all these really great questions and speaking to the host. I had a lot of fun with you guys' conversation.